Traditional Indian architecture is known and recognized all over the world as most sustainable. It has many characteristics. This house was transplanted from 4 different houses in Alapura to a place near Banergatta in Bangalore. Sujit Kumar is the eminent architect from Delhi who has recently shifted his base to Bangalore. He is the one who is responsible for transplanting this house all the way from Alapura to Banergatta in Bangalore. Thank you for being with us, Sujit Kumar, on this premier edition of Omnibus.
Thank you.
My first question obviously would be, where did you get this idea of transplanting 4 different houses, traditional houses, to Bangalore?
Actually, when I was in Delhi and wanted to do a house for myself, I bought a piece of land there and wanted to do something which was very natural and down to earth, which was very simple, basic. I do a lot of ostentatious hotels, hospitals, theaters, pubs, all kinds of things. But when it comes to my own house, I said it has to be something which is very basic, very simple, very down to earth, and absolutely unpretentious. I wanted a house where people don't have to walk in with their shoes on, don't have to take off, and just be yourself. So I have seen my grandmother's old house and this faint smell, a very, very comfortable smell, and little damp and moist, something very, very aged about her, the house. And I thought, I want to have a house like that, more like a mother's womb, in terms of the look and feel of it. And traditionally, the old Tarawads of Kerala are one of the finest examples of architecture where you actually build absolutely in tandem with nature. You build with the solar axis, you take the north, south, east, west axes. You never build across or away from that. You ordain the total building in absolute harmony with the fluxes of nature. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, no, if I have to build something like this, it's impossible today because 1, you don't have the resources to do that. 2, you don't have the people who can do it. 3, the cost is exorbitant. And 4, as a conservationist, to build a house like this, you need to maybe not cut a tree or 2 trees or 5 trees. You might have to need a whole forest for this. No, each column here is like a tree. Like a tree. A whole full tree comes, and there are 24 such columns. There are 24 trees just supporting this. So I said, there are a lot of these houses in Kerala which are being dismantled or burned down or sold away or falling into disuse or termite infested and getting away. And gradually I see in front of my eyes the whole architecture, Tacha Shastra, decaying away. So I got this idea that no, if I can identify a small nice house which I can dismember and I can reassemble. So went around studying this, and a lot of places we see these houses which are very, very good houses where the people have moved out to the US or somewhere and they settled outside and they don't want to come back, nobody to take care, and the cost of maintenance is so high that they don't want to invest in it, and slowly decaying. Mm-hmm. So for the last 3 or 4, 5 years maybe, 2 years since I got this, about 5 years I've been looking for houses like these, and I found some which are very big, don't have the necessary carving, some which are very small but too dark and very low in height. Nothing ever fitted the kind of scale that I wanted in terms of the room size and in terms of the elevation and the look. And then I realized that I could never find a house that will fit what I wanted. So then I came up with this idea that if I could find congruent houses or similar members, then I could maybe reassemble them into a geometry which can fit in. Mm-hmm. So with that, I found one house about 30 kilometers off Alapura on a hilltop. So it was sort of decaying and they wanted to give it away because that was well kept. So I said, okay, this looks like a good house, but it didn't have the nice columns and fixtures. Then there was a part of a broken down kacheri, it's called a courthouse something. So got a part of that. And then my guy who was sourcing out for me, he found out some part of a little temple's rooftop and few things. So then I started putting them together, like how I could assemble. So we hired a place on the National Highway 47 and we put people and tractors to dismember out parts one by one and bring them down. Okay. And we assembled the whole thing on the ground there and put it together and found some parts missing. So, for example, one of these pillars, this thing is about 40 feet long. To get a 40 feet single piece of wood today itself is a nightmare. You don't find a piece like that. And you can't join them because that is the main purlin or the member, like what is called curricle, on which the whole thing rests.
Okay.
So we said, okay, just to engineer those 3 or 4 missing parts, it took me a month and a half and a lot of money to do that. So if I had to do a house like that, I just can't do it. So once I started assembling them, I found that, okay, this needs a porch. So I looked for a place that would be a porch. So I found another part, I put the porch across. When I put the house and the porch together, I realized that it needs a front and a dormo, what is called a pumugham.
Okay.
So then I found a pumugham, I fitted it, and when everything got assembled in place, I was convinced that, okay, this looks like something that I can live with. Then we numbered each of them, got a base plan done, and I came back to Bangalore, where I just bought a piece of land. And being a farmer, I always believe that the best way to live is to live with nature, work inside, hands down. So to me it was nice to get this back. We put the template of the building back on the ground, and by the time the foundations were done, it took us about 15-20 days to do the foundation. They dismembered those assembled parts there and numbered them, put them in trucks and came back. And about 17 days we assembled the whole house here.
Lovely. Now tell me, to be very honest, don't you think this is going to be, this was quite different from what you learn in colleges, in architecture schools, and what you carry from there is very different from what you have done here. Is it very easy to simply transplant a house from Kerala and build it over here with the same kind of dimensions, the same sastra behind it, everything?
In fact, to be very honest, and this is my belief now than before, because when I went to college I was a young yuppie. Imagine in '83 I had half of my head shaved off. I used to wear a earring and I had a lot of ropes around and bangles. So I was one of those stud guys, very postmodern as far as India was concerned at that time. And I was very influenced by the Western thinking and processes. And I was the blue-eyed boy of the college who would step into the Western shoe very easily. And it so happened that in the final year of this thing, a few changes happened, and I started working with earth-sheltered buildings, earth technology, using earth for heating and cooling. And I got carried away a lot back into history. And I found that few examples which were very nice, which actually transformed the way I think today, happened from there. So the next 20 years has been a process of unlearning what I was taught. Fundamentally, you look at this building, we are all taught to have a foundation for a building so that the building can rest on that, and you transfer your forces across compressive lines, and then you spread it across, and through bending you hold it down, and you transfer loads across various methods into the soil. This whole building doesn't have a foundation, technically speaking. You just have a toe wall with a floor, and this house is just kept free floating. These pillars you see are not embedded into the ground, they're just kept on the ground, and they're all loosely pin jointed. So what happens is, whether the earthquake or a high wind, it just moves and settles. It just moves, that's it. And it's fabulous the way it controls the dynamics of structure in terms of transferring load from one place to another. Traditionally, this whole building is done without a single nail. They're all done by house joints, a bird's mouth joint, fishtail joints, housing joints, and so on. So all you're taught, structurally and physically in terms of space, everything is different. It has a large use. I'm not saying it can be replaced, but it has a different style of thinking. But when it comes to residential or individual housing, the thoughts are very simple. What is it that you want in your house space? It's a lot of warmth and comfort, a feel-good factor, and generally be able to feel happy the next day when you wake up. Any house, any structure can define that, can reduce your stress levels, can improve your performance, can give you longevity in terms of living. I think it's a great house. And having done maybe 1,000 buildings, or maybe 500, 800, I stopped counting. But having done so many buildings, I realized that we can satisfy requirements, but you can never be holistic in a building. And this architecture...
What I was trying to relate to is, you use terms like Pumugam and Naligatta. Naligatta house is a different structure altogether. You have a central pool, which is part of integral part of the house. Now, to transfer that idea, were you not lacking in knowledge, and how did you fill that gap?
See, when I was, after my architecture, in fact, when I was doing my master's and then a PhD, I happened to study the Vishnu Dharmottar Puran, the Matsya Puran, where Vastu Shastra is written. I mean, I first learned the traditional Indian wisdom of architecture, and I realized today that whether it is science or art, there's so much of knowledge we have amassed over the last 5,000 years, which we so conveniently forgotten in the last 50 years. Just one generation, one maybe our generation is responsible for this. One generation, we totally lost the whole depth, width, magnitude of information and knowledge as a country as it is.
That cuts across every kind of information. It's about
All
Ayurveda,
kinds.
it's about Vastu Shastra, all kinds of traditional knowledge.
Pure physics, motion, levitation, body, mechanics of body, holistic living, thinking, behaving, religion, posture, sitting, breathing, food, house. I mean, I'm not, when you say in totality, the amount of information and knowledge we have gathered is mind-boggling. And sometimes I sometimes know, nowadays I feel so humble by the effort that has been created, that today I see that I don't know why we neither have the desire to explore them, or we find it so shallow and just talk about it in conferences and forget about it, and we easily adapt what is adaptable, like a Western building or a new building. My whole point in this is, across the board there is so much of degeneration of knowledge.